Hi guys, and welcome to this episode of the Bombshell Diaries. I have Kela Robinson-Smith here, who is a fertility and hormone coach, and she's going to be telling us all about fertility and what we can be doing to boost our chances to conceive. And so I'll kick it over to you, Kela, if you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about what you do.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Laura. So I am Kela Smith, and I am a fertility and hormones coach, just like what you said. And I help women learn how to balance their hormones so that they can conceive naturally. It's kind of stemmed from my story. I struggled with infertility for about 2 years, and I was able to get really intentional with what I was doing, what I was eating, and I was able to reverse that naturally. So that's kind of how I started this, started my journey with fertility coaching through my own personal story. So yeah.
And then I know you have a success story too. So you struggled with fertility for 2 years, but where does your life like now?
Yeah, so I was able to reverse that infertility diagnosis and I got pregnant naturally. So that was my first. And so I have a 6-year-old right now. And then once I kind of figured out how to do that, and once I got my body to learn, like, okay, this is how you get pregnant, then my second, which is 4, I conceived him after 1 try. So it was almost like the body was like, okay, I know what to do. So now let's do it again. Yeah.
I feel like sometimes our body needs to know, like especially if you hadn't been pregnant before, like it knows what to do. Obviously, that's how our bodies are designed and built. But sometimes it just needs, some help getting there and just going through that process, which, is all good all around.
Yeah.
Are you open to sharing? So like you mentioned having an infertility diagnosis, like what was that like at the doctors, and like what did they tell you was wrong?
Yeah. So, I'll kind of go back to the beginning when my husband and I first got married. We did what most people, I knew I wanted to have a family. So we started trying pretty quickly, and I thought it would be easy. You hear your whole life, try not to get pregnant. Like I feel like so many people think it's so easy to get pregnant, but it's really not. Oh, I'm so sorry. I meant to turn that off.
No worries.
So, we started trying. We went a couple months, maybe 4 or 5 months, nothing was happening. So we went to our doctor, and, I was healthy. I ate super healthy. I'd been in health and wellness. So I was, I was fit. I exercised all the time. And so my doctor ran some tests, and she was like, I don't know why you're not getting pregnant. And I feel like she says what a lot of doctors say, just keep trying. Like, we don't know why it's not working. Just keep trying. So we tried some more. And then after about 3 more months, we went back in and it still wasn't happening. So that's when she said, well, okay, let's try some fertility drugs. So she put me on the most common fertility drug, Clomid, which I feel like is what most doctors will start with. Now I know that Clomid is not that great for you, and it really can mess with your hormones. And so, and it didn't work. We tried it for 3 cycles. It didn't work. Still wasn't getting pregnant. And so then that's when she suggested we go to our fertility clinic. So that's what we did. We went there. We had more testing done. They just kept saying, like, unexplained. We don't know why. You should be getting pregnant. We don't know why. And so that's when they suggested we do IUI. And I knew I didn't want to keep going down that road. I had nutrition knowledge. I knew, I was like, there's no reason why I'm not getting pregnant. So let me just see if I could, instead of just eating healthy, let me see if I can get very intentional and start eating specifically for fertility. So I started researching and just learning as much as I could, and taking my nutrition knowledge I already had. And so I started eating specifically, like, okay, this is what I need to eat during this time of my cycle. I started with the cycle syncing. I started eating, the seed cycling, all of it. And after a couple months, I noticed that I was like, my ovulation was perfect. My, all that. I had all the signs, like, okay, I must be really fertile. So my husband and I just started getting really intentional with our love making, and I was able to get pregnant. And so, and it's so crazy too, because, I could have kept going down that road of the medical route, and, I have a lot of friends that do, and it works for them. But I also know the other side of it, where it can be very expensive. It's not always a guarantee. It's really hard for your body. And so, I just knew I wanted to try it naturally first. And so that's what we did, and it worked. And so now we have 2 little babies. Yeah.
I know, that's
anymore.
Yeah.
6 and 4, but yeah.
That's such a good story. And like, you're talking to a community of women who really do want the natural approach. They really, like you, like eat well, exercise, and just need that hormone connection to be able to be intentional and strategic on what your goal is. So, for some women, it might be weight loss, or some women, it might be mood stability or skin issues or digestion. Like those are very intentional hormone related things. But for you is fertility, which is why I'm happy we're talking together, because I think what something women don't understand is how different some of these goals can be based on what you're eating for food, based on what you're doing for exercise. And like, you really do need to start with what your very specific goal is and then backtrack with your food, your lifestyle, and all of that stuff. So do you mind sharing in your work, like what the common barriers are for women who might have a difficulty trying to conceive?
Yeah, I feel like it's different. Like you said, there's so many different things. And so when somebody comes to me and they're having trouble conceiving, I try to look at the big picture. And so I do a fertility questionnaire with them, and I kind of see like, okay, what are you currently doing? What is your weight like? What is your lifestyle like? And so I really try to pinpoint and get to that root cause. Okay, is it that we need to lose a little bit of weight? Is it that we are way overstressed at work? Is it that we are, exercising way too much? Like, I think that was one of my issues. I was really fit, really lean. I exercised all the time because I thought it was healthy, and I was exercising too much. And so I really kind of look at each individual person. What are you currently doing? And what are some things that I can see, like this might be the root cause? And so let's pinpoint that and try to fix it that way.
Yeah, I think a lot of it too has to do with lifestyle. And like, we don't really know that. I mean, I fall into the old category now of over exercising, and that really screwed up my hormones. And like, same thing, I thought I was being really healthy, but like definitely screwed my cycle up, which basically meant like if my cycle wasn't in line, I knew trying to conceive later on in my life is going to be very hard. So at least I had that understanding of like, our cycle needs to be in perfect alignment for that to happen. And like, each woman truly is different. Like, some women, it can be super easy and super fast, and that's what works for them. But then there is a large community of women where it's going to take a couple tries. It could take a couple of months. And during that time, what intentional actions are you going to take to make sure that your body is in the best alignment? But also, and I think like my work with cycle syncing and like regulating hormones and just understanding how to like tune into your body, you're also given that grace period to kind of prepare for that next step and that next stage of life. So I think part of us can wish away like the journey to get to the next point. But like, what did you learn during that time of you trying to conceive naturally?
Right. Yeah.
You probably learned so much about yourself, and then you were like, wow, I can use this for good and help other women in my business. So before you were trying to conceive naturally, did you talk to women about fertility, or was it from your own journey that you then decided to help other women conceive?
Yeah, so it was really it's a combination of the two. I had a lot of friends that struggled with infertility. And so we would just chat about, kind of like, well, I don't understand. And so but it was also from my own journey, just not getting the answers that I wanted from the medical community and just being very frustrated. My doctor never talked to me about my nutrition. She never talked to me about my exercise. And I feel like if I had gone in and maybe I needed to lose a little weight, then that would be the first place that she would have gone, which I feel like is so horrible on the other side of the coin, because it's like a lot of times a woman will go in and the doctor will say, well, you just need to lose a little weight. That's kind of their answer for everything, but they don't ever say how. They don't ever say like, these are the foods you should be eating that's going to make it the easiest for you to do that. And so I feel like it can be frustrating on both sides of the coin. But it was my own kind of like, I don't want another woman to have to struggle the way that I did. And so I'm going to go back to school and see if I can help and just get as much knowledge as I can.
Yeah. And I really love what you said too about like not getting the answers from the medical community, because I hear that time and time again from women, regardless of what they're trying to do. And like, there isn't a conversation about nutrition there, especially if you're like active and healthy. They just look at you and you're like, okay, why are you even asking? Like, go home, basically. And it's like, no, like I've had so many doctors look at me like I'm crazy over things, and they're like, you're healthy. And I'm like, yeah, I understand that. But sometimes you don't always feel healthy, or like you're not understanding how things kind of connect in your body. So do you think when you were trying, you mentioned ovulation started functioning better. In the times you were trying before that happened, did you notice the signs of ovulation, or was ovulation something that you needed to actually like pinpoint and improve?
Yeah, I don't think I was really paying attention to it until I started having problems. It was like we weren't tracking, I didn't know any of this stuff. I'm like, I just thought you had sex and you got pregnant. It was like that. So I think it was from not being able to get pregnant and then really getting that intentionality with, okay, I need to start paying attention to this. Like, am I ovulating? Do I have my cervical mucus? And is it, all these signs? And so I think once I started looking for those signs, then I was noticing, okay, this doesn't seem right. Or then when it did get right, I was like, okay, this is what it's supposed to be like.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then once your body was in that alignment,
Right.
you then were able to conceive naturally and obviously carry 2 children to term. So it's just really interesting how most of us are not taught the signs of ovulation and how important that ovulation window is. Like, even if there are women listening to this who are like, hey, I'm really interested in this information for when that happens in my life, but also having your ovulation in check for your everyday wellness is one of the most crucial things for women, because that drives, like, our fertility drives our energy and vitality and emotional well-being in life. So like, as much as like during the times of our lives where we don't want to conceive, we kind of just like wish away the fact that our body can reproduce. And it's like, well, we only want that to happen when we're ready. But it's like our body all month long needs to be in that perfect alignment and balance. So it's just so fascinating. Like, for me personally, like, once I started focusing on the ovulation phase of fixing my cycle, that's when I started noticing the most improvement. So it wasn't focusing on like having PMS symptoms or the period week. Like, those are a reaction of ovulation not functioning the best way possible. So if you're trying to conceive, like, really focusing on what can I be doing for ovulation, that's going to boost my energy, chances of conception, and all that stuff. And then naturally our bodies can then kind of fall back in the natural rhythm it's supposed to be.
Exactly. That's always the first question I ask when I get new clients. I'm like, are you ovulating? If you're not, let's figure out why you're not, and let's get that back on track. Because like you said, your period is like your report card. So if you're having all these terrible symptoms and all this, then that's a symptom of you not ovulating. So,
right. Or just like not correct, like something is off, like it's just not clicking the way that you can. And I know that there are tests too that women can take to at least like figure out what their fertility structure is like. So like, I've personally taken like the female hormone panel, which tests the hormones related to ovulation. So then like, I feel like it's super important to also have that blood work done so you can really see like what's going on, what's not. And then the other one I did was the ovarian reserve test, which I thought was like really helpful. I was nervous doing it because I was like, it's basically the quality of your eggs and like how many are left, basically. So like, it's so interesting, but it's powerful to have that information, because then like, I feel like you and I are the same. Like, once you have that information, you're like, okay, now I know what I can do with it.
Right. Exactly.
Instead of being fearful and in the dark.
Yep. And to put a caveat on that too, if, the people listening, if you do go get those tests, ask to see a copy. Like, if you go to your doctor, make sure they give you a copy and you read it. You want to be in the normal range, and you don't want to be on the low side of any of those hormones. Because I feel like a lot of times the doctor will be like, oh, you're normal. But I'm like, no, I'm low in progesterone. That's really important. I mean, maybe be in the range, but if I'm low, I'm going to have a hard time maybe implanting in me. So I think that having that knowledge is really powerful.
Yeah, I think there's that too. So like, ovulation needs to be on point, but then like your luteal phase, when progesterone rises, which we need to get pregnant, if you don't have enough, then you might be having a fertilized egg, but it might not be implanting, which means you're obviously going to have some fertility issues. So it's just definitely having that awareness and having that knowledge and being able to connect and work with people like you who are able to walk them through that process. Because I think the female brain can just be so overwhelmed, go down that rabbit hole of not being good enough or not being enough, or like kind of beating ourselves up, which we go through on a monthly basis anyway, and then bring fertility into it. Like, it's just a lot of stuff. What do you tell women like when they are feeling a bit down and just feeling low? Like, how do you let them know that everything's like going to be okay?
Yeah, I think just being there, that's half of the reason why people work with me is because I'm just that person that's holding your hand and telling you it's going to be okay. And, that person that they can lean on and encourage them and support them. And I feel like a lot of times we don't have that as women.
Yeah.
We have our friends, but if our friends aren't going through this and they don't
Yeah.
know, we have our doctors, they probably hadn't gone through fertility issues. So it's, it can be so powerful if you have a coach to work with and that person has also gone through her own fertility struggle so she can kind of hold your hand through it. So,
Right. I
yeah.
know. Having that support is so nice because it's definitely like you said, like if friends haven't been going through it, they might tell you like, yo, yeah, you're going to be fine. But like sometimes like that's not what you want to hear, or you're just like, because I had that a lot with like, I had PMDD. So it was like my PMS symptoms were like times 10 of what the average woman struggled with. And none of my friends experienced it. So I would internalize it and suffer alone and just feel like I couldn't talk about this. Nobody understood me. So you're right, like having someone in your corner to just be able to talk to, because sometimes we can't always get that from the everyday people in our lives. And like, that's not bad. It's not saying that they can't support us and be there, but sometimes you really do need people who like get it and like understand and just know like you're normal and everything's okay. So I know you talk a lot about food for fertility. Can you share some foods that we can be eating to boost our fertility?
Yeah. So the first thing I always look at is kind of, staying away from anything processed or like taking that sugar out of your diet. And I know that is so hard to do for some of us. We love our sweets, but I always talk about, how is this going to make you feel? If you love something, obviously have a small piece of it. But if you don't love it, don't eat it. And then think about how is that going to make you feel? So is that cookie going to be worth you having a headache? Are you feeling sluggish,
Yeah.
being bloated, or, all the symptoms that come with eating sugar? So that's one thing I try to, help my clients to get away from sugar. But I also, in my cookbooks, have made all these recipes that still can give you something sweet to eat, but that can be good for you too.
Right.
Like I have a healthy fudge and a healthy cookie and all of these things. So that's one thing that I talk about. And then some foods that you can add. I always talk about fat. You definitely need fat for fertility. It's good for your brain. It's good if, once you do get pregnant, it's good for the baby's brain and all the early stages of development. So I love just
Yeah,
adding in some.
fats make hormones.
Yeah,
Which I
exactly.
feel like, yeah, most women don't know is like we fear the fat because of what we've been told and like the media and stuff, but like healthy fats help make hormones.
Yep,
So like
exactly.
obviously you need that for trying to conceive and to grow a baby. So I
Yep.
love that you're saying healthy fats.
Yes, yes. And some examples, for people listening, just it doesn't have to be a lot. I say 1 to 2 tablespoons with every meal. So that can
Yeah.
be a handful of nuts. It can be a quarter of an avocado. It can be some olive oil in your salad. It can, it's not a ton of fat. I think a lot of times, especially people my age, I think I'm from the low fat era. So I was growing up, around not eating fat. So yeah, it's not a lot. It's just a little bit and it's so good for you and your hormones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What other fertility boosting foods can we add?
Yeah, so I always do a whole food diet. So,
Mhm.
lots of fruits and vegetables, lots of things that provide you with a lot of nutrition in a small serving. So, like smoothies are my go to for breakfast. Lots of fruits and vegetables can go in a smoothie for
Yeah.
8 to 12 ounces. The other thing I love are soups and stews. Like I put tons of vegetables and tons of like superfoods like kale and broccoli and different things like that. And so anything where you can get a lot of nutrition in a small amount is kind of my go-to suggestions.
Yeah. Those are so good because I mean, I feel like the women in our community, like they eat really well and they know like, okay, I know I'm not supposed to be doing sugar. I know I'm supposed to like eat a lot of fruits and vegetables. But at least knowing like at making sure we're getting those healthy fats in,
Mhm.
finding hidden sugars, because I feel like sugar hides in a lot of things that we
Yep.
like don't really know, or like when you're out on the weekends and if we haven't really like pre-planned our meals, you're like more likely to obviously eat something that's not good for you or whatnot. So it can definitely like compound on top of each other. But sugar, yeah, especially with women who fall into the trap of like craving sugar before and during their periods. And like I used to do this where I would be like, oh, well, I never eat it. So I will have some, but then I notice like once you open that door, you're like, oh, well, I want it more. And then you beat yourself up a week later and you're like, all right, let me get back on the bandwagon. So it's
Right.
really like, how can we just do everything in moderation? And I do the same thing as you, is like recreate like sweet treats where you can have something sweet to satisfy that sweet tooth, but not where your blood sugar is taking a hit and you're actually consuming a lot of sugar, which obviously we know is not good for us.
Yep,
So I
exactly.
know that you have a freebie for us that we can utilize. So do you want to tell us what you're going to be sharing with all of us?
Yes. So it is my hormone puzzle cookbook. And so this is about 10 different recipes that I've created that are for fertility and hormones. So yeah, it's really great recipes, delicious, easy to make, not that many ingredients. So yeah, it's a really, really cool thing. And so they can get that at hormonepuzzle.com. There's actually 2 cookbooks at that link and my masterclass. So if anybody wants to watch that, they can watch that, where I talk about the 5 secrets to decode your hormone puzzle.
Okay, awesome. And I will leave links for that below so that you're able to just go directly there. Where else can we find you on like social media, on the interwebs? Like where can we find you?
Awesome. Yep. So I'm on Facebook at Kela Health Coach. I'm on Instagram, Kela_Health Coach. I'm on LinkedIn, Kela Robinson Smith, and on Pinterest, Kela Health Coach.
Okay, awesome. So we can cyber stalk you for
Yes.
recipes and more information on how to balance our bodies. Thank you so much, Kela, for joining us and going over the hormone puzzle, how we can be eating and boosting our fertility, and just know that we're not alone and there's resources like you out there that can support us.
Yes. Thank you so much, Laura. It's been really fun. And thank you guys for watching.
Yay!
Yay.